Welcome to the eLABorate Topics podcast, where we focus on lab-specific strategies for medical laboratory professionals. We're proud to be the healthcare detectives that work behind the scenes to get the results needed to influence medical decisions. Let's grow together and jump right into the lab.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the eLABorate Topics podcast. I'm your host for today's show, Stephanie Whitehead. For those of you tuning in for the first time, I'm your podcasting laboratory leader and co-host for this show. The eLABorate Topics is a weekly podcast where myself and my co-hosts, Taiwana Wilson and Lona Small, bring you topics related to the laboratory and leadership to help you excel inside and outside the laboratory. I'm really excited for today's show, so let's get right into it, because today I'm joined by a very special guest and friend of the show, Miss Tiffany Gill. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. For our listeners, I'm going to go through Tiffany's bio and give you a little bit of information about herself before we get into our conversation. Miss Tiffany is currently a professor and MLT program director. Tiffany has worked in a variety of clinical laboratory environments, from a small rural hospital laboratory to a greater than 900-bed teaching hospital lean laboratory in various positions. Although Professor Gill has taught courses in all disciplines of clinical laboratory, she found her love for education after volunteering and teaching chemistry in a hospital-based MLS program where she worked. Her position was unique because she was able to be a senior technologist in the core lab, train employees, perform competencies, teach students in clinical rotations, work with pathology residents, and educate students in classroom environments. Wanting to further her passion as an educator, Ms. Gill accepted a position as an MLT program director at a local college. Since then, she has created a technology-enhanced program, which I'm excited about talking with her today about, that offers collaborative learning experiences with students and other healthcare programs, as well as offers ways for students to serve in their community. She currently serves as a faculty mentor and an ASCP mentor. Her ultimate goal is to improve the safety and effectiveness of healthcare, through collaborative healthcare education. So, Tiffany, getting right into it, what a wonderful journey you've had through your laboratory career. So tell me and our listeners, why did you choose education as a route in your laboratory journey, and what made you go into the laboratory profession in the first place?
Well, it's a long story. Originally, I really wanted to be a physician because I didn't know very much about the lab to begin with, and so being pre-med, you have to take all these science courses with labs, and I realized that what I really was passionate about being a physician, I could find really in the laboratory, because I got to learn a little bit about what happened there, and that, the laboratory is the diagnostic testing part of healthcare, which basically spurs on the patient's treatment and the effectiveness of the treatment. And I really enjoyed the idea of using science as a superpower to help a lot of people at one time. And I don't know, that just really attracted me because I like to really work with my hands. I love being super busy and engaged. I love machines, I love technology, and I also love science. So it really all fell together, and I learned about it actually by chance. I didn't really know that you needed to be certified in order to work in the lab. So I live in an engineering town, and as soon as I got my biochem degree, I couldn't work anywhere down here. And so, I would go to interviews, and one man told me, take your degree seriously. And I said, I'm really trying to, but I just couldn't find a job. And I was like, well, I'll just go work in the lab. And then I found out that you had to be certified to work in the lab. So I said, hey, where is the closest place to get certified? How do you get certified? And they actually told me about the program that I am running now. And I didn't see that as a sure thing at that time, because there were two people ahead of me that were in the position I am in now. And the program was not successful, and it was an MLT program, and I needed an MLS program. And so the closest one was over an hour away, and so I went there, and I would drive up. It would take me 2 hours to get there and 2 hours to drive home. I was engaged at the time and planning a wedding and, doing all these crazy things in order to prepare for classes. And we were in class 8 hours a day for half a year, and doing everything at the same time. So we did hematology, chemistry, microbiology, all that like on the same day. So our tests were on the same days and everything. And then the next 6 months, we did our clinical rotations. And so that is the program I taught in as soon as I graduated that program. So I had worked at a hospital before that, a hospital laboratory before that, and as the send-outs person, and while I was waiting to get into the MLS program. And so that's how my journey started. But I really, really enjoyed education. I really enjoyed sharing my passion for science and the love of laboratory medicine with others, and it becomes infectious in the classroom. I get super excited, and so it just drives me forward. And as you said earlier, my goal is that I want to, I saw a lot of things in the lab over the years that I wanted to change, and that saying, be the change you want to see in the world. I figured if I pursued education completely, that hopefully I would be able to help rid healthcare of those situations and problems through education. And so even even in the program that I'm running now, we do collaborative experiences with other healthcare programs, and eventually I would like to also do it as CEs for people who are already working within the healthcare environment, and maybe do like a study between, how successful were we, doing the collaborative experiences in the healthcare setting, healthcare education setting, versus once they become professional. So anyway.
Wow. So that's a really serendipitous story of how you got into the MLS field. Like, you ended up actually, having somebody recommend you go to the program that you're currently teaching at. And the dedication of a 2-hour commute in school, my goodness, while you were married.
Yeah, and I worked there. For years after that. So I did that commute for a very long time. And now my commute is a little over an hour instead. So I cut it in half. But I love where I live, so it's worth it.
We've talked about several times with other guests on this podcast how it's very difficult, and I haven't yet met a person, but maybe one of our listeners has, and if you have, make sure you drop a comment on this show. But, it's very hard to find a person who went straight into medical laboratory scientists. Like, all of us just kind of like fell into this profession in some round, like we started out another way, and then some people went to fair at their university, and then stopped by the MLS table and got a pamphlet or got another degree and realized they couldn't use it, and, kind of fell into the laboratory career. And so I think that's always just so interesting to talk to people about how they actually got into the laboratory profession, because very few people just are, in high school, like, I'm going to go to college and be a medical laboratory scientist. Like, we usually all kind of just stumble into this field. But I love how you said science is a superpower. That's really impactful.
Yeah, I've noticed the same thing. I actually did meet one person who wanted to be a medical laboratory scientist, but now she's she runs the biotechnology program at a high school near our college, and we're trying to get a agreement together to. I have this whole succession plan that I'm working on to basically create a pipeline into the program, but also out into the field, including replacement of laboratory directors. So there's this whole big plan that I'm working on. But she kind of astonished me when she said that, because I, like you said, have never really found anyone or met anyone who decided that's really what they wanted to do. But I'm hoping to change that, because we really need to get the information about this amazing field out there, because there's dangerous consequences otherwise. But at the same time, it's such a great field to be in. It really makes a difference.
Agreed. And I like that you said that you went into education because you wanted to be the change. And so often people stand on the sidelines and talk about what needs to change, but to actually take action and say you want to be the change, and so you go into education. So what is your favorite part of being an educator?
Oh, wow. There's so much. I love, I just really love the passion of new learners. These topics are information that they've never really come in contact with before. You know, when you go into this field, you kind of just don't know what you're getting into, because you're like, hey, I have a really great science background, but there's this whole other layer that you never really thought or didn't realize existed. And so it's really neat to see them grow and to blossom into these amazing professionals. And, you know, instead of feeling like one person trying to change the world, I feel like passing on good practices and understanding and professionalism through these new individuals. I feel like that is more helpful, instead of just trying to be one superhero out there, creating more and uniting the field and the healthcare team is really what I'm called to do. So I'm hopeful that that'll happen. And that hospital that I worked at before I went into the MLS program, the lab director there wanted me to stay, and she said, as soon as you get out, we'll bring you on and, name your salary. And I said, well, I've already signed, or I have the opportunity to sign a contract with the place that I'm going to. Here's what they're offering. She said, I can't match that. But after working at that large hospital for a very long time, I came back, as we said, became the program director, and her and I became great partners in, reestablishing the workforce and the lab that she actually just retired from. And so it was really neat to be able to go and basically come home and bring back what I've learned and help to embellish and augment the care that's provided down here. So it's really exciting.
Of the areas that you teach, do you, because the laboratory field is constantly evolving, right? And so I'm sure as an educator, you have to kind of keep up with that in terms of how you're teaching students. And so is there a favorite area of discipline that you like to teach, or do you find one area maybe more difficult than others because of how often it changes?
That's a really good question. And I ask students what their favorite area is, and they're always very quick to say something. And they ask me what my favorite area is, just like you did, and I end up starting with one, and then being undecided at the end, because I really love them all. And that's not cliche or anything. It's really the truth, because I find that once I just start getting into it, I get so excited and passionate that, I'm like, oh, this is my favorite part too, and this is my favorite part. I do I do really enjoy teaching about respiratory therapy and acid-base balances in chemistry. And blood banking. Both of those I find that students have a little bit of a challenge, so I might enjoy them the most because I find unique ways to make it relative to them and to get them to basically identify with the information in a way that maybe would have not been possible if maybe it wasn't me teaching it. I don't know. I'm not trying to say that I'm better than anyone else, but I have placed myself in the program to teach certain courses because I've noticed struggles for students in the past just because of the way that the content is. It's not, like blood banking is not something that students relate to very easily. And so I have made it so I teach that course because the way that I teach is to think like a student, to be able to answer the questions that someone who's never seen the information before would ask, and, start from grassroots. How does this work? Why does this matter? How does this connect to what I'm going to see when I'm in the lab, and how does that relate to treating the patient? So I guess I like everything, but I enjoy challenges. So I enjoy trying to make something that would be a little alien seem a little more domestic to people.
I love that you said that you teach in a way that you think like the student first, because I think sometimes and this happened to me a lot when I was going through my education journeys through undergrad and graduate school. People teach, and actually I actually taught for a little while too, and I probably fell into this a little bit myself, so it's difficult to not do. But you teach a course for so long that you just kind of get used to how you teach it. And you forget that the students, haven't had the fundamentals. Like, these are brand new students in the classroom. To you, it's material that you've seen, 4 or 5 semesters in a row, but you forget that this is a brand new batch of students who need to know the foundation and to, go back and sit in their seat and think like them for a moment. It's helpful. Blood bank was also my favorite, but I've talked about this before on this podcast, that I was just an anomaly growing up. Like, I liked all the difficult stuff, but easy stuff was so hard for me. Like I told a story on another episode where I was saying, like in high school, I was like in advanced trigonometry and all these advanced mathematics classes, but left and right was so hard for me. It would be so embarrassing when somebody would say, like, "You're left, my right," and I would be like, "What?" So I can do all these complicated math problems, but trick of the trade for anybody else who's having this problem: on your left hand, if you hold up your index finger and stick out your thumb, it makes the shape of an L. And, like, still to this day, sometimes somebody will say, everybody raise your left hand, and I'm just like, wait, which one is? Oh, this one. But maybe that's why I like the blood bank, because it was hard, even though it was hard for me to tell left and right. So let's get into, why I even reached out to you in the first place, because I actually had a chance to sit in a chat room that you were in at this year's CLIC conference, the Clinical Laboratory Education Conference, and heard about your YouTube channel and was, extremely fascinated and intrigued to talk to you about more about it. And so why don't you tell our podcast listeners about your YouTube channel?
Well, I was very happy to meet you too, by the way. That was an accident also. Going into that chat room, because I was headed to a different one and nobody was in there. And so I ended up in the one with all of you all from the same ASCP committee. And I'm like, oh, am I not supposed to be in here? And then Dana introduced me, and I said, oh, okay. well, I guess I'll stay. And I found out she was going to the same one I was in and did the same thing, that nobody was in there. So we all had to do the same one.
So that was all of our ASCP secrets.
Yeah. It was really neat because I got to meet all of you, and now I'm friends with all of you, and, you know, Erin, Dana, and you, and I can't remember the other people that were in there at the time, but it was really nice because it's really great to, you know, talk with people who are like-minded and stuff and see what's happening and what's coming up. But yeah, so the YouTube channel is called Medical Lab Lady Gill, and I did not choose to have my last name in there. Google did that on their own. And so I've even thought about, you know, there's this I guess, program where you can buy a 1 foot square plot of land in Scotland, and they plant a tree on it for you, and you become a lady or a lord because then you own land in Scotland. And I have considered just buying one and planting a tree just so I really can be Lady Gill.
Wow. You know what? I'm telling you, when we say we're giving you information to help you excel inside and outside of the laboratory, that is an example. Ladies and gentlemen, buy land in Scotland, be a lord.
There you go. Yeah, one step up. Never thought I'd say that. I haven't done it yet, but I'm really thinking about doing that because it feels so weird to say. Some people call me Lady Gill, and I'm like, oh, it was meant to just be Medical Lab Lady. Dana's at that lab tick. You know, I was like, oh, that sounds fun. I want to do something like that. But really the reason the name of the channel turned into that was because names matter. And when starting a YouTube channel, it takes a while for it to really catch on. So the way that you can try to make things happen faster is to make sure you're naming it so that people, when they're searching, then the name will automatically pop up because of the types of terms that they're using. So at first it was not that. I can't remember what it was. But I ended up altering it so that it would pop up in searches. So what it is basically it's a channel made of playlists that are for different sections of the laboratory, and they hold procedural videos. And so you can go on and pick, blood typing, and you can go there and see tube testing and an explanation for how it's done, why is it done, and, what are the best ways to do it, what are the interpretations. So I tried to do the purpose, the procedure, and the interpretation of results for the procedures in there. There's also some fun playlists, too, where it's just stuff, during breaks. It could be like a weekend break. It could be a semester break, whatever the case may be. And it has stuff in there like me going down a slip and slide in the backyard, sledding, a groundhog eating in my backyard, just fun stuff, I like all sorts of things, so I thought it would be fun to be a little more personable in that way.
So your channel has a lot of subscribers, almost 20,000 subscribers. So tell me, what was the motivation behind creating such a forum? Because you really don't see many laboratory people doing such a thing in this type of space. And then talk to me about, like, your subscribers, your reach. How did you said it takes a while to kind of get momentum. So how did you go from, the startup to almost 20,000 subscribers?
Yes, that is a lot. The three main reasons that I started the channel, I guess you could say they were selfish, because number one, I wanted to help my students out, and I felt that I could do better in the program. And so, we have we have all these students, right, and we have a demonstration area, and I was finding that I was losing people. When I would do demonstrations in the lab, if you weren't up front and there, people were blocking you and you couldn't see, and I didn't like that. So I ended up deciding that I wanted to do demonstration videos, because that way students could go and have the best seat in the house, so to speak. Everybody had the best seat, and they could review it as many times as they wanted to. They could listen to it on the way in, as we were talking about at another point, and just review as needed and be able to just go back and refer, what did she say? What did she do? I don't remember what that looked like. And I felt that it was the best way to meet all learning styles. We have, in the laboratory, we traditionally have the learning style of very visual people and tactile learners also. And that seems to be a very common combination, although that's not the only combination of people that come in. And so for people who are auditory, they can listen to, what's happening and what is being said. For visual people, they can go in and they can look at what's happening and what does it look like. And, they can, it's kind of almost like a practice that they can go over in their mind. And I've had students do that. I had one particular student who was like, okay, hold on. And he would close his eyes and he would rerun the video in his head. And he was like, okay. And then he would do what I did in the video as, what he was doing in lab. So that was really neat. So, yeah, it was mainly for me to be able to flip my classroom laboratory, because I flipped the theory class, but I wanted to flip the lab class. So they watch the videos. They're assigned videos to watch before they come into classroom lab. So they're ready and primed for what we're doing that day. And then the class time then is just devoted to the actual skills and what they're doing and asking questions and having a great time and conversation. Another reason I started, so the second reason I started, was because I wanted to promote the laboratory profession, and it's very hard to do. As a program director, you're expected to do the marketing. You're expected to go out and tell people, about the program. We are only we're the only program of its kind in the Southern Maryland area. So, we have a lot of ground to cover. And so, it's just me. I'm honestly a program of one full-time faculty member and 2 adjuncts, and I'm the only full-time faculty member. And so it's a lot to do. It's a lot to handle, and it can be very overwhelming. And that seems to be very common with MLT programs, unfortunately, and I'm hoping that'll change in the future. But, you want something that draws the right type of people in. You want something that's engaging. So using the YouTube channel basically as a backdrop, it pulls people over to the table or the booth that you're in. You can talk with them about what's going on in the video. I usually bring slides, to show them. I enjoy bringing ones with microfilaria on them so people can see, there can be baby worms in your blood, and they freak out. And then we have a great conversation, and we talk about, how blood doesn't actually look like this. It's stained. Why do we stain it? And really get them into what we're doing and why we do it and how it relates to being a part of the healthcare team. But really bringing them in with that YouTube channel, or basically sealing the deal with the YouTube channel, is really great. I went to my oldest daughter's middle school a few weeks ago, and I know this is probably going to jump ahead in our interview, but I went to her career day, and whenever you tell any middle school student or high school student, hey, I'm a YouTuber, they're like, what? And then they listen. It's an attention grabber, and it makes you feel really cool for a little bit. and then you go back to being plain old boring mommy or whatever. But it really is an attention grabber. It helps to pull people in and to get them understanding what you're talking about instead of just using words. Because, like I said, most people are visual. And then lastly, I know that I was struggling having these type of resources. As you were saying, there wasn't much out there. And so I wanted to provide this stuff for everyone. If it's helping my students, why not help somebody else's students? Why make somebody recreate the wheel? So I always ask other program directors and faculty and students, what would you like to see on the channel? Let me know. I'll try to do it. I've had some really great feedback from students and faculty telling me what they want to see and the kinds of things that they want. And I've had a little bit unhelpful comments also. One was, do a video for everything. And while I appreciate and feel honored that that person felt very reliant on me, that's impossible. And, I can't, it's not a full-time job, so it's just something I do basically on the side to help people. But yeah, I would love to do everything in the lab. So that means I've got many years ahead of me, I guess.
So you mentioned that you had some videos on there of like you on a slip and slide and, other things. So what are some of the most interesting videos or topics that you've been able to review and add to your channel?
Well, I have had some requests, like I said, and so I guess two that come to mind. There's a program director out in California, and California puts restrictions on MLT programs. And so one of the things that he asked for me to do was to do the trichrome stain. And at the time, we didn't do that. But then I made a case for it, and we started putting that into our curriculum. And so I did the fecal concentration and trichrome stain videos so that his students could see parasites and fecal material. And so that's Professor Pedro out in California, little shout out there. And then Professor Pal Baker, as we know as Dana, she didn't request one, but she said basically how she was really introduced to my channel was using the Illusion video for her DCLS students to show them what that she was talking about, how the procedure really works. She's like, it's just something you really got to see. Here, let me show you this video. And so that's been very encouraging because, as you were saying, the range and the reach is very, very deep. I mean, we have laboratory staff and laboratory students from all over the world that are tuning in to either review for a new position, review for an exam, get extra exposure to information, maybe even someone who's been out of the field for a while wants to jump back in and uses it to review for that. But I was looking at the subscribers yesterday, thinking about, how far we've come. And we've got the top 10 locations for viewers include all of North America, India, the Philippines, the Middle East, the UK, Malaysia, and Africa. But there's a lot more. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of where these viewers are located, and it's really, really neat. I've had people ask to translate the videos, and I did one that I translated into another language. That took a lot of time. But, yeah, from the very beginning, we were saying it goes really slowly, and I think a lot of people have a misconception about being a YouTuber that, you're going to be an overnight success. And, if you're not enough without the YouTube channel, then you're not enough with the YouTube channel. You need to be your own person and professional before you ever think, this is going to make me, because it's not something that makes you. It should just augment, who you really are. And so I remember it going so slowly in the beginning, and, just trying not to be discouraged. And I'm like, I really have to think about what the real reasons were for me doing this. It was for my students. Yes, I want to promote the profession. Yes, I want to help other people. But, if this is where I am right now, this is where I am. And I remember just celebrating like the first 100 subscribers at the dinner table. We were so excited. I was just so pumped up about that. And here we are, thousands later. And, it's still not commonplace. It still feels wonderful. It feels like I'm doing something worthwhile. And I do really appreciate every single person who views and subscribes. So I don't want to diminish their contribution. So thank you all for tuning in and, all your support. It really does mean a lot to me, but it also means a lot to healthcare and, everyone who is working to make healthcare better.
But I think it also says a lot about the power of social media and how social media can help bring this whole profession, this laboratory community together, give us a voice for each other, help us support each other. Like you said, you've had other professors reach out to you to translate or to share your videos with their students. So you're not just helping your own students, you're helping students in entirely different programs that you've never met or taught before. And to me, I think that's, really, really amazing that you kind of stepped out on your own footing to do this and kept with it, stayed dedicated with it. And now, to me, it's something that is connecting individuals and motivating other people in, different countries that you've never maybe even been to or met. And we've talked a lot on the show before about, laboratory professionals, maybe thinking outside of the box on ways to stay connected, on ways to support each other, on ways to network and share thoughts, ideas, concerns, so we can improve the quality of our profession. And, I think this is an important example of how you've been able to do that. Why do you think it is important that, medical laboratories think outside the box and maybe even look towards something like social media to have that experience?
Well, I think it's really important because it gets us out of behind the locked biohazard sign labeled door. It makes us people. It makes us approachable. It makes healthcare a little more equitable, and knowledge is power. And I feel that everyone should know more about all the team members that are a part of the healthcare team. Doesn't matter if they're a patient or a staff member, a professional that's already working in that line of work. Everyone should know about each other because, think about a soccer team or a football team. If one team member doesn't know what the other one is going to do, they have a plan of how they're going to approach the next play. If they don't know who's going to do what and who they should rely on, the plan is going to fail, right? And so if we are approaching healthcare as, I work in my own silo, I'm just here to get this done, then it takes away the heart that is supposed to be in medicine. It takes away the compassion. It takes away the humanity. And it's so important to me that, we put aside egos, we put aside misconceptions, and we reach out and talk and ask for help.
So how you can't have a conversation today without talking about COVID-19 because that's obviously changed every profession, everything that we do, the way normal looks across the entire world. So how has COVID-19 changed what you're able to do with your educational program. It sounds like you already had the foundation to make parts of your teaching virtual, and so perhaps, COVID-19 wasn't that big of an impact. I don't know. How did it impact you?
Absolutely. Yeah. It since I had started the YouTube channel, it was already part of the curriculum. We didn't get hit that hard. We did have to make some changes. Our students were denied going out to clinical rotations. So you'll see on the YouTube channel, I made clinical rotation playlists. I also modified our documents for their clinical rotations to go along with those playlists, and I did share them with other program directors around the country. And so it was nice. I was able to help others keep their programs going as well. And something really cool happened. I got put on the ASCP Program Directors Resource List, and I was so honored that happened, and it was really amazing. And honestly, COVID was when the channel really took off. So I was starting to see, subscribers by the thousands. Like one day I'd be 1,000 more subscribers than the day before. So that was really amazing and humbling. But I never stopped going to campus, actually. So we did something really cool. I got it from a cooking show. I love the Worst Cooks in America. So one of the things that they do on that show, it's basically people who are terrible at cooking, and they come, and Chef Ann Burrell and whomever she has as a co-host ends up teaching these people how to cook, and they end up doing this amazing 3 or 4 course meal for these experts at the very end. And they, whoever wins, that chef has another, feather in his or her cap for being a great educator. So one of the things that they do is, after teaching students for a while in these different skills, they have the students, or the recruits they call them, tell the educator or the chef what to do. And so it's basically a puppeteering kind of deal. And so that's what we did with COVID and our classroom labs. We basically did a professor puppet kind of scenario where the students would log in online, and we would have a live face-to-face meeting through Zoom or Microsoft Teams. And the professor would do the skill, because the students had already really learned the skills, so we were just continuing class on. And the students would tell the professor what to do, and the professor would ask questions of, how do you want me to do that? Why do you want me to do that? And we were able to continue our courses that way. Of course, the theory courses went to be face-to-face online as well. And that was pretty much how things changed when we were able to come back into the lab, where students were coming back into. We obviously, changed the lab to make sure we follow CDC guidelines. But one of the major things that ended up changing that I really appreciated, and I think I'm going to continue, is so in our program, we have laptops that everybody uses while they're in the lab. There are MLT laptops. And so even though the students are face-to-face, like on-site in the same room as the professor, they're still logging in to the Meet and putting the laptop cameras at their hands and their benchtop to show exactly what they're doing. That way, the professor can look at what they're doing and give them feedback and, try to help them, because we're not supposed to stand next to them. And I think I'm going to continue that, because it really is wonderful to be able to see everybody at once doing the same thing. That way, you don't get in a classroom, you always have a range of student abilities and preparation. So if somebody didn't watch the videos before they came in, they're going to hold everybody else back who has. And so, you have them sit and watch the videos and be prepared that way, read the procedure and all that. And then, those who are already going forth and doing the exercises can do it, and you can meet the needs of both groups of students at the same time. And you don't have that one person who decides they're your best friend and they want you at their side for every single step of the procedure, which does happen, and it's unfair to the rest of the class. So being able to meet the needs of everyone, no matter where they are on that spectrum, is really, really nice. So I think I'm going to continue that.
That actually sounds like a good idea, because you would be able to see also like common things that people are doing right or wrong, and be able to say, I see a lot of people doing this, and this is incorrect. Let's go back over this. Or they do that a lot in the gym. So I also want to highlight, is there a Medical Lab Lady Gill store? Is that true? And how did that start?
Yes, the legend has become real. So the store started because I really, really like to promote and empower the successes of my students. And during the semester, every time a student passes an assessment with a 75% C or higher, they get a ticket. And so we hold what's called the MLT Lotto at the end of the semester. And so what it is every time someone gets a ticket, it goes into the MLT Lotto. And at the end of the semester, I buy all of these gifts with my own money. I don't get reimbursed or anything, but I buy all these gifts with my own money, and it's to celebrate the accomplishments of my students, because I'm so proud of them, and I want to show them that they should be proud, and I am proud, and that I do care. And that their commitment is something worthwhile and should be celebrated. So the prizes that I give out, I like to have them be lab themed, because I think it's very important to just continue on and cultivate that passion. So I would go out and see these different lab themed gifts, and I'm like, that one is not very accurate. Somebody makes a T-shirt and they do, the phlebotomy rainbow, and it's in the wrong order. And I'm like, and that bothers me, because, if you're going to wear something that is medical related or could be used as a teaching tool or reinforcement tool or promotional tool, have it be accurate, right? So I have noticed that there's a YouTube creators email, and I guess they call it a little school, but they send out all these resources, and they kept sending me this email about, hey, you can have merchandise. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I was thinking, wait a minute, that's a really great idea. And so on a whim, I just started fiddling around with it, and then just started creating different lines of gear and everything. And so I've been giving them out. I've been wearing them in class and everything, and using them as a teaching tool. It's pretty neat. And the students enjoy it. I enjoy it. It hasn't been really successful as of yet, but we know, things take time to grow. But one of the things I was thinking about was, wouldn't it be cool if we could have a story years or decades later of the T-shirts that made the lab, where we have all these people who are so excited about the lab, who are, wearing lab swag, and creating these lab-oriented conversations in the community where people are starting to get accurate information about who the lab is, what we really do, and start to really encourage people to go into the field because, you know, most students that go into college, their knowledge of the professions that are out there are basically what they've heard. You know, so what their family knows. And if their family doesn't know about healthcare, they're most likely not going to go into healthcare. So if we're out there, you know, wearing all the stuff and being walking billboards and like forcing conversations just because people can't get away from seeing it, then, you know, I think that would be totally amazing. You know, the T-shirts that built the lab, that would be really awesome. And maybe we could have that conversation years down the line. But no, it's mainly.
I welcome you back to have that conversation.
Yeah, it's mainly just to promote.
You've gone from helping your students to having your own clothing line.
Yeah. Whoever thought I would be a designer?
Yeah. You are the Dolce and Gabbana of the laboratory profession, for sure. So if you're listening, make sure you check out the Medical Lab Lady Gill store. Go and buy some merch. Help out Miss Tiffany Gill so she can use the funds to reward her students on all of their hard work. So this has been a really awesome conversation, one of my favorite that I've had because I just really enjoy your passion that you have for teaching in the laboratory profession, and it's been so much fun to talk to you. But as we wrap up our conversation, I always love to ask our guests what advice you have for our laboratory or even students of yours that might be listening that they can use in their professional lives. So what are 2 or 3 things that you could tell the listeners really quick to help them achieve their goals? Or if your students are listening, maybe 2 or 3 things you would tell them.
Well, I have 3, and they may not be what you think they're going to be. The first one is, and I really stress this with my students, and I stress this with my children and other children, you know, you matter. You have a purpose. Everyone, no matter what their ethnicity, sex, age, creed, everyone faces diversity. You can't get away from it. You're human. And so it's what you do in response that matters. So no one can reduce your worth unless you let them. So showing self-respect and respect for others will induce a chain reaction of positivity, even if it isn't apparent right away. And the main point of that, though, is that you need to do it first. If you don't do it, you know, you have to lead by example. If you don't do it, nobody else is going to do it either. You can't rely on somebody else to do what you know needs to be done. The second one is get a mentor or 2 or 3 or however many you need. So mentors are meant to help guide you from their experience and point you to others when they can't help you with your questions. But there's no one size fits all. So everyone at any point in their career, whether you're 16 years in or you're in your first year or you're a student or, you know, you're retired, everyone can use a mentor because the field is ever changing. I think we're one of the fastest fields in medicine, even technology-wise and everything, to change. It's a really exciting field. I can't stress that enough. It's so amazing. But you know, ASCP and ASCLS, they provide mentors if you ask, so you can go to their website in order to sign up for one. But even if it's not in that way, you can find someone who you respect in the community. You can find someone that you've noticed doing certain things, and they all don't have to be in the profession. You should at least have one in the profession you're hoping to go into. But, ask them those questions that you're afraid to ask publicly. How do I know if an education program is the right one? And the first thing that you should think about, and this is my mentoring you right now, is to make sure that program is accredited. You need to make sure that the credential that is required in order to do the position, it has that credential exam has an eligibility requirement. Immediately go to those first, and then make sure that whatever program you go to receive that education is accredited by what is required for that certification. So that's just one piece of advice I can give you. But absolutely get mentors that will help you mold you into the person and the professional that you want to be. And that kind of leads into number 3, that you are the only you, and you have your own unique combination of interests, gifts, and experiences. And it's going to be different than everyone else in the world, and everybody's going to try to put you in a box that's comfortable for them. But that doesn't mean that is who you are or that's who you have to be. So the thing about it is just like a wedding dress. You buy the dress that fits you. You don't reshape your body to fit the dress. The same thing with the profession. You shape your profession to fit you. I mean, like we just said, I'm a fashion designer now. What? Nobody would have ever thought that would be a thing, right? I certainly didn't. And, just because you're starting out in one spot doesn't mean you can't do this other stuff too. So if you change yourself to fit the profession, you lose out on innovation and progress because you're not daring to step outside the box that you've been put in. And so that's what we're all about here. That's what we're talking about today. And that is my advice to you.
Thank you. And outside of this podcast, how can people reach out to you, learn more about you, stay connected with you? I'm sure that some of our listeners are going to want to reach out to you and just talk to you more, or have you become their mentor?
Absolutely. I welcome all that. So listeners can reach out to me through the community tab or the video comment section of any of the videos on Medical Lab Lady Gill, the YouTube channel. Excuse me. I'm also on Twitter, and you can search me using @Medical Lab Lady G, and that's all one word, no spaces. And in that way, you can also private message me. So if you're trying to find a way to email me, you can just private message me through Twitter, and I'll get it. I'm also on LinkedIn, but I don't really use it. I know that's terrible to have on a recording. I don't really use it all that often. I do get emails from there. So if you do choose to use LinkedIn, you can absolutely email me through there, and I have answered emails that way. It's not something I've been recently using. And you can find me on LinkedIn with my name, Tiffany Gill. And then as Stephanie was saying, I'm also a mentor in the ASCP Mentors program. So if you feel like you want to reach out and see if we would be a good match, then go ahead and we can have our initial conversation and talk about what your goals are and if I really am a good match. So that's it.
And that is true, because I first tried to reach out to Tiffany through LinkedIn, and I got no response, but I was determined to have her come on this podcast, and so I stalked her on Twitter, and she responded. So, Twitter is your best bet if you want to get with Miss Tiffany Gill. It really is.
I did not know that you tried to get me on LinkedIn. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I dusted off a couple of skills that I had in the past before I got married, but, I found you.
Well, at least I'm honest about saying where I really am. LinkedIn was when I first, I think, in the first couple of years when I started working at the college, but I noticed that I wasn't really having a lot of action there. And so I kind of forgot my password and everything. And